Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Story RIM. Before we begin today's journey, I have one small favor to ask. If you enjoy learning English through true stories from history, and you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing to the channel. It would mean a great deal to me, especially while Story RIM is still growing. Every new subscriber helps this channel reach more people who love history and learning, and your support encourages me to keep creating these stories for you. Thank you so much for being here. Now get comfortable. Take a slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. Clear your mind and allow this story to carry you gently back through time. Picture yourself standing on a long, dusty road beneath the blazing Indian sun. The air is warm and dry, and the silence is broken only by the steady sound of footsteps. Far ahead, you notice an elderly man walking at a calm, unhurried pace. He is small and thin. His head is shaved. Round glasses rest gently on his face, and a simple piece of white cotton cloth is wrapped around his body. In one hand, he carries nothing more than a wooden walking stick. At first glance, he doesn't look like someone who could change the course of history. He has no army behind him, no weapons, no fortune, no throne, no government giving him orders or protecting him. And yet, if you look beyond him, you will see something extraordinary. The road stretches into the distance, filled with people. Hundreds become thousands. Thousands become tens of thousands. Farmers, teachers, students, mothers carrying children, elderly men walking beside young boys. They move together in complete peace, step by step, without fear. They are not marching toward a battlefield. They carry no swords, no rifles, no shields. They are simply walking. But that peaceful walk will challenge the greatest empire on earth and prove that courage does not always carry a weapon. The quiet man leading them is Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. One day, the world will know him by another name, Mahatma. In Sanskrit, the word means great soul. Stay with me, my friend, because this is far more than the story of one man. It is a story of how kindness challenged power, how patience defeated fear, and how one quiet voice inspired millions of people around the world. Our journey begins in the year 1869. On the 2nd of October, in the small coastal town of Porbandar in western India, a baby boy was born into a respected family. No one could have imagined that this quiet child would one day lead one of the greatest freedom movements in human history. His father, Karamchand Gandhi, served as the chief minister of Porbandar, helping govern a local state with honesty and dedication. His mother, Putlabai, was deeply religious. Every day she prayed. She fasted often and believed that discipline, compassion, and self-control were the path to a pure heart. From her, young Mohandas learned lessons that no classroom could ever teach. As a child, Mohandas was incredibly shy. He was not the brightest student in school. He wasn't particularly athletic or confident either. In fact, he was frightened of the dark. He feared snakes, ghosts, and even speaking to strangers. Years later, Gandhi admitted that as a schoolboy he often ran all the way home after classes because he was afraid someone might stop and talk to him. It is hard to imagine that this timid child would someday speak to millions. When Mohandas was only 13 years old, his family arranged his marriage, as was common in India during that time. The young girl's name was Kasturba. She was also 13. Neither of them truly understood what marriage meant. They were simply two children trying to grow up in a world filled with traditions they were too young to question. Yet they would remain together for the rest of their lives. When Mohandas turned 18, his family made another life-changing decision. They sent him across the sea to London to study law. Leaving India was not easy. It meant saying goodbye to his mother, his young wife, and his newborn son. Before he departed, his mother asked him to make 3 promises. He would never eat meat, he would never drink alcohol, and he would never be unfaithful to his wife. Mohandas gave her his word, and throughout his years in England, he kept every promise. London felt like another world. The cold weather, unfamiliar food, elegant clothing, and busy streets made him feel completely out of place. At first, he desperately tried to fit in. He bought expensive English suits. He took dancing lessons. He even learned to play the violin, hoping to become what people called an English gentleman. But after a while, He realized that pretending to be someone else would never bring him happiness. Instead, he began searching for something much deeper, his own identity. He joined a vegetarian society, where he met people from many different backgrounds and ideas. He spent long hours reading about philosophy, religion, and morality. For the first time, he carefully read the Bhagavad Gita in English. He also read the Bible and discovered the writings of the great Russian author Leo Tolstoy, whose belief in love, truth, and nonviolent resistance left a lasting impression on him. At the time, these books seemed like ordinary reading, but quietly, almost invisibly, they were planting the ideas that would one day change Gandhi's life, and eventually the world. Back to India, the lawyer who could not speak. In 1891, Mohandas Gandhi returned to India with a law degree and high hopes for future. He believed he was finally ready to begin a successful career. But reality was far more difficult than he had imagined. Although he was now a qualified lawyer, the same shyness that had followed him since childhood still held him back. During his very first court case, Gandhi stood up to question a witness. Every eye in the courtroom turned toward him. Then something unexpected happened. His mind went completely blank. His mouth became dry. Not a single word came out. After standing there in silence for a few painful moments, he quietly sat down, handed the case to another lawyer, and walked away, deeply embarrassed. It was a heartbreaking beginning. He struggled to find clients. He struggled to build a legal career. More than anything, he struggled to find confidence in himself. For a while, it seemed as though his dreams had already come to an end. Then, when he least expected it, an opportunity arrived that would change everything. South Africa, the journey that changed history. A trading company offered Gandhi a legal job in South Africa. It seemed like an ordinary assignment, expected to last only about a year. He accepted the offer, packed his belongings, and sailed to South Africa in 1893. At the time, he believed he was simply taking another job. He had no idea he was stepping into the chapter of his life that would transform him from an unknown lawyer into one of the most influential people in history. South Africa was part of the British Empire, and racial discrimination was woven into everyday life. Indians were treated as second-class citizens. They could not vote. They were forbidden from using certain sidewalks. Even if they paid for a first-class train ticket, they were often denied the right to sit in a first-class compartment. It didn't take Gandhi long to experience that injustice himself. Thrown off the train at Pietermaritzburg, only a few days after arriving, Gandhi boarded a train bound for Pretoria. He had purchased a perfectly valid first-class ticket and settled into a seat, dressed neatly in a suit and tie. Everything seemed normal. Then a white passenger entered the compartment. The man looked at Gandhi with anger and immediately complained to the conductor. The conductor demanded that Gandhi move to the third-class carriage. Gandhi calmly refused. He had paid for his ticket, and he believed he had every right to remain where he was. The conductor called the police. Moments later, Gandhi was dragged off the train and left alone on the platform at Pietermaritzburg station. It was a bitterly cold night. He sat alone in the dark waiting room, shivering, not only from the cold, but from humiliation. That lonely night became one of the turning points of modern history. As Gandhi sat there in silence, he realized he had a choice. He could return home and forget what had happened. He could answer hatred with violence. Or he could find an entirely different path. That night, he chose the third option, Satyagraha, the power of truth. Instead of returning to India, Gandhi stayed in South Africa. 1 year became 2. 2 became 5. Eventually, he spent 21 years there. During those years, he developed a revolutionary philosophy that he called Satyagraha. The word comes from Sanskrit and is often translated as holding firmly to truth. Its message was simple, yet unlike anything the world had seen before. If a law is unjust, do not obey it. But do not fight with fists. Do not seek revenge. Do not respond with hatred. Accept the punishment openly. Walk into prison with dignity. Endure suffer without giving in to anger. By refusing to hate those who oppress them, Gandhi believed ordinary people could expose injustice more powerfully than any weapon ever could. He organized peaceful marches. He led protests. Again and again, he was arrested and sent to prison. But every arrest only strengthened the movement. Every beating created more sympathy. Every prison sentence inspired thousands of others to stand beside him. Something remarkable had happened. The frightened boy who once couldn't speak inside a courtroom had finally found his voice. It wasn't loud. It wasn't filled with anger. But it was powerful enough for the entire world to hear. Return to India, a new Gandhi. When Gandhi returned to India in 1915, he was 45 years old. But he was no longer the timid young lawyer who had left more than 2 decades earlier. South Africa had changed him forever. He had lived through discrimination. He had faced angry mobs. He had spent time in prison. Most importantly, he had discovered that ordinary people, united by courage, truth, and determination, could challenge even the mightiest empire. He came home not simply as a lawyer, he came home as a leader. India under British rule. The India Gandhi returned to was still under British control. For more than 150 years, the British Empire had ruled the country. They controlled the government, the courts, the army, the police, the railways, and nearly every part of the economy. Imagine it. A nation of nearly 300 million people was governed by a small island thousands of kilometers away. British officials lived in magnificent homes with wide verandas and lush gardens. Servants waited on them while millions of ordinary Indians struggled to survive. Railways stretched across the country, and telegraph lines connected distant cities. But these projects were built mainly to benefit British trade and strengthen British rule. Meanwhile, India's wealth, its cotton, tea, spices, precious stones, and countless other resources, flowed steadily into British hands. Many Indians had already tried to resist. The Great Rebellion of 1857 had nearly shaken British rule, but ended in tragedy, crushed by overwhelming force. After that, many people believed independence was simply impossible. The British Empire seemed too powerful to defeat. Gandhi goes to the villages. Gandhi saw the problem differently. He believed that freedom would never come from the wealthy or the powerful alone. So instead of staying in the cities, he traveled to the villages. He met farmers who struggled to feed their families. He sat with laborers who owned almost nothing. He visited communities that society had rejected for generations. Among them were the so-called untouchables, the people placed at the very bottom of India's caste system. Many believed they were too impure even to touch. Gandhi rejected that cruel idea completely. He called them Harijans, meaning children of God. He chose to live simply, just as they did. He wore plain cotton clothing. He ate simple meals. Every day, he spun cotton thread on a small wooden spinning wheel. That humble spinning wheel soon became a powerful symbol. It represented self-reliance. It carried a simple but revolutionary message. We do not need British cloth. We do not need British factories. We can build our own future with our own hands. The Salt March of 1930. By 1930, Gandhi understood something that many others did not. If he wanted to unite millions of ordinary people, he needed to challenge a law that affected every single person in India. He found it in something so ordinary that most people never even thought about it: salt. Salt was essential for every family, rich or poor. Yet the British had made it illegal for Indians to make or collect their own. Instead, they were forced to buy heavily taxed salt from a colonial government. To Gandhi, this was more than an unfair tax. It was a symbol of foreign control over everyday life. So he decided to challenge it in the simplest way imaginable. On the 12th of March, 1930, Gandhi quietly left his ashram with a small group of followers and began walking toward the Arabian Sea. The journey covered nearly 385 kilometers and lasted 24 days. As they passed through village after village, something remarkable happened. More and more people left their homes to join them. Farmers, laborers, students, women, and children all stepped onto the road. What began as a small march slowly became a moving river of humanity. Finally, on the 6th of April, Gandhi reached the seashore. He bent down, picked up a small handful of natural salt from the wet sand, and held it in his hand. It lasted only a moment. There were no explosions, no battles, no speeches filled with anger. Yet that simple act echoed around the world. By picking up that handful of salt, Gandhi had peacefully broken British law in front of everyone. Newspapers across Europe, America, and Asia rushed to report the story. Photographs of the small man dressed in plain white cloth, standing beside the sea with a handful of salt, appeared on front pages around the world. The British government reacted quickly. Gandhi was arrested. More than 60,000 Indians who followed his example were also sent to prison. The jails overflowed. The courts struggled to keep up, and the eyes of the world turned toward India for the British Empire. It became an impossible situation. Here was the most powerful empire on earth, with its vast army, navy, and government, imprisoning peaceful people for collecting salt from the beach. The image damaged Britain's reputation far more than Gandhi could ever have done with violence. That was the true brilliance of Gandhi's strategy. He never tried to defeat the British with guns or force. Instead, he made their own actions expose the injustice of their rule. Every peaceful protest met with violence made the empire look weaker. Every arrest inspired thousands more to join the movement. Every prison sentence strengthened the cause instead of destroying it. Gandhi believed the greatest weapon was not a sword or a rifle. It was truth. Truth, expressed with courage, patience, and compassion, could accomplish what violence never could. Again and again, he proved that peaceful resistance could shake even the strongest empire in history. The struggle continued for years. There were more marches, more arrests, and more suffering. Yet, Gandhi never abandoned his belief in nonviolence. In 1942, as the Second World War raged across the globe, he launched what would become his final great campaign, the Quit India movement. His message to the British was direct and unforgettable. Leave India to God. And if that is too much, leave her to anarchy. The British government answered in the only way it knew how. Gandhi and nearly the entire leadership of the independence movement were arrested. Gandhi spent almost 2 years behind bars. This time, however, the prison walls witnessed one of the greatest personal tragedies of his life. His wife, Kasturba, the same girl he had married when they were both only 13 years old, was in prison alongside him. Her health steadily declined, and in February 1944, she died in prison. Gandhi held her in his arms during her final moments. After 61 years together, he lost a companion who walked beside him through every triumph and every hardship. Even in the face of unbearable grief, Gandhi refused to surrender. Time and again, he placed his own life on the line through hunger strikes. He would stop eating completely until violence ended or injustice was addressed. His body grew weaker with every fast, but his moral influence only grew stronger. Whenever Gandhi refused food, an entire nation waited anxiously, wondering whether he would survive. Meanwhile, the world itself was changing. The Second World War had drained Britain's economy and weakened its empire. Maintaining control over India became increasingly difficult, while the demand for independence became impossible to ignore. Then, at last, history changed forever. On the 15th of August, 1947, after nearly 2 centuries of British rule, India finally became an independent nation. Across the country, people celebrated as the Indian flag rose proudly over Delhi for the very first time. But freedom came at a terrible price. British India was divided into 2 new nations, India and Pakistan. What became known as a partition triggered one of the largest and most painful migrations in human history. Millions of families fled across newly drawn borders, carrying whatever they could on their backs. Neighbor turned against neighbor. Communities that had lived together peacefully for generations were torn apart almost overnight. Historians estimate that between 1 and 2 million people lost their lives in the violence. For Gandhi, this was heartbreaking. He had dreamed of an India where Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, and people of every faith could live together as one nation. Instead of celebrating political victory, he walked through the streets of Kolkata and Delhi, comforting victims, calming angry crowds, and pleading for peace. Once again, he used hunger strikes to stop the bloodshed. His body became weaker, but his determination never faded. Then came the darkest day of all. On the evening of the 30th of January, 1948, just 5 months after India won its freedom, Gandhi walked slowly into the gardens of Birla House in New Delhi for his daily prayer meeting. Hundreds of people had gathered to greet him. As he approached the prayer platform, a man stepped forward from the crowd. His name was Nathram Godse, a Hindu extremist who believed Gandhi had shown too much compassion toward Muslims. Godse bowed respectfully before Gandhi. Then he pulled out a pistol and fired 3 shots at point-blank range. Gandhi collapsed to the ground. According to many witnesses, his final words were, "Hey, Ram, oh, God." He was 78 years old. News of his assassination spread across India with incredible speed. Streets fell silent. Shops closed their doors. Millions wept openly. The man who had led nearly 300 million people toward freedom without an army, without wealth, and without violence was gone. And so, my friend, the journey of the small boy from Porbandar reaches its gentle ending. He was never a king. He never commanded soldiers. He never possessed great riches or political power. He began life as a frightened child who feared the dark, a shy young lawyer who could barely speak inside a courtroom, and a passenger thrown from a train because of the color of his skin. Yet from those ordinary beginnings came an extraordinary truth. Gandhi showed the world that the greatest power does not come from violence. It comes from courage guided by compassion. It comes from speaking the truth with quiet confidence. It comes from refusing to hate, even when hatred is directed toward you. He believed that if you truly wish to change the world, you must first change yourself. Live your values. Practice what you believe. And when enough ordinary people stand together peacefully, even the strongest empire cannot stand forever. His ideas traveled far beyond India. Martin Luther King Jr. used Gandhi's philosophy to lead the American civil rights movement. Nelson Mandela drew strength from his example during South Africa's struggle against apartheid. And countless movements for freedom and justice across the world continue to follow the path he helped create. As for you, my friend, you are walking your own journey. Every time you choose to learn instead of giving up, you are taking a step forward. Every difficult word you master, every lesson you finish, every day you refuse to quit is its own quiet act of courage. Progress is rarely fast. Sometimes it feels invisible. But just like Gandhi's long walk to the sea, every small step matters. So keep walking, keep listening, keep learning, and never stop believing that small, consistent actions can change your future. Thank you for spending this time with me here on Story RIM. If Gandhi's story inspired you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What stayed with you the most? Was it the lonely night at Pietermaritzburg Station, the unforgettable Salt March, or the incredible idea that one peaceful man could challenge the greatest empire on earth? Thank you for watching, and until our next journey through history, take care, my friend.